By the end of this video, you're going to know the 20 easiest plants to grow indoors. If you're struggling to keep your houseplants alive, maybe you've been buying the wrong plants. Not all houseplants require the same amount of care, and some are much easier to take care of and keep alive for many years than others. I'm going to show you my top 20 favorite houseplants that are super easy to grow in your home. But you're going to want to make sure you watch till the end of the video. Make sure you make it till the last plant on the list because I'm saving a really amazing houseplant for the end. This is a really incredible plant that has absolutely stunning flowers, and it is not only really easy to grow inside, but it's also really easy to get to bloom inside. You're not going to want to miss this. Start off the list, I'm going with one of my absolute favorite houseplants, the Audrey Ficus. There are a lot of different types of ficus trees that are popular to grow inside, but the Audrey Ficus is by far the easiest of them all. So if you want a ficus tree, but you've had trouble with the fiddle leaf fig, the Ficus lyrata, or the classic ficus tree, the Ficus benjamina, which can both be kind of tricky to take care of. If you've had trouble with those, you should go with an Audrey Ficus. The Audrey Ficus is really one of the easiest trees to grow inside, period. Just make sure that you put it in front of a window, water it every 2 weeks, and it'll be very easy to care for. And it's really cool looking. I've come to really like the Audrey Ficus more than the fiddle leaf fig. And it has these beautiful dark green velvety leaves. And plus, everyone has a fiddle leaf fig. They've been one of the most popular indoor trees for a very long time. And I think there's something, cool about just you know, having something different than everyone else. In the Audrey Ficus, it's becoming very popular recently, but it's not like the fiddle leaf fig where, everyone has them and you've seen them a million times. And then also, the Audrey Ficus have these cool aerial roots, which can hang down and look really cool and give it a really tropical kind of feel. And I really like the look of those aerial roots. The Audrey Ficus also has a very interesting history. It's an ancient plant with a cool story behind it. They call the Audrey Ficus the banyan tree in some parts of the world, and there are a bunch of like famous banyan trees and giant ones, in California and Hawaii in different spots. And outside, they can grow up to like 100 feet tall. So they become these huge trees. Inside, obviously, in a pot, they'll maybe get like 10, 12 feet tall. They are also the national tree of India, where they are originally native to, and where they're considered sacred. It is said, famously, that the Buddha himself was actually sitting at the base of an Audrey Ficus, sitting under an Audrey Ficus meditating when he reached enlightenment. So, if you want to reach nirvana, get yourself an Audrey Ficus. It's that easy. So, while the Audrey Ficus is one of the best trees to grow indoors, some people might not have room for a large tree in their house. So, if you want a smaller plant that grows like more of a vine, I'll show you that next. All right, next up we have the Rapidor Tetrasperma, which is also known as the mini Monstera. It's called the mini Monstera because it has leaves that look somewhat similar to the Monstera. The holes in the leaves, which you can see I have a big Monstera here, the holes in the leaves are called fenestrations, okay? And the fenestrations on the Monstera are very similar to what mini Monstera has, even though it is in a totally different family. And while a normal Monstera has its kind of growth pattern, its structure, the mini Monstera grows more like a pothos, more like a vine. So if you can think of a pothos plant that's going to grow down like a vine, but the leaves look more like the Monstera, that's the mini Monstera. And it's perfect if you want a plant that you can put in a hanging pot or put it up on a shelf and have it kind of vine down, hang down. And it really gives a very cool look with those fenestrations on the leaves. So just put it near a window because it does need some bright indirect light at least. So just put it near a window, water it once every week or two, and it'll be very easy. So while these last couple plants I've talked about have had really they're tropical plants and have a very cool tropical feel, tropical vibe, if you will. If you want something that has more of that desert kind of vibe, this next one is for you. For plant number 3, we are going with a super cool plant that comes from the deserts of Mexico, the spineless yucca. All right, so since most commonly used houseplants are from tropical climates, this one being from the desert, it really makes it unique amongst houseplants, and it's one that's going to really stand out in your home. I do want to say right off the bat that the spineless yucca will need a lot of sunlight. Okay, so it's not going to be one that you can just put anywhere in your home. It's going to need to be in your brightest window, so ideally a south facing window or at least west facing so that it gets that strong afternoon light. But as long as you have a good window with really bright light, it's super easy to take care of. Since it is a desert plant, that means that, it obviously doesn't need much water. It can also help to plant it in a really loose, well-draining soil. So I would use that Fox Farm Happy Frog soil and then mix it with either a bunch of perlite or mix it in with a cactus and succulent soil that has a bunch of rocks and sand and stuff like that. And, do like a 50-50 mix. But as long as you don't let it get too wet and keep it in a sunny spot, it'll be fine. It'll be fine, even if you use full Happy Frog. These also can grow pretty quickly. In their native climate, they can grow up to like 30 feet tall and they'll branch out too and look really cool. You know, obviously, this isn't realistic inside to have a 30-foot tall tree, unless you have some giant mansion or something. Maybe if you're rich, maybe it is. Maybe that's just what you want, 30-foot tall tree. But in a pot, it's going to be very hard to get it that large, and it's going to stay much smaller. They'll get to like 6 or 7 feet tall. I've seen one. I used to take care of one that was like about 12 feet tall. When I used to have a job taking care of plants and like various businesses in Boston, around the city, around the local towns there. So I used to take care of a spineless yucca that was like probably 12 feet tall, but it was in a bank that had really tall windows, really high ceilings, and it was in a huge pot. So if you have the space, you probably could get it that big, but you'll need room, not just like vertically for it to grow, but you'll need room to have a huge pot inside your house. Wow, storm is picking up out here. It's exciting. So, now that I've showed you a great plant to grow in a really bright spot in your home, next I'm going to show you one that does not need much light at all. Next we have Natal Mahogany, which is a really cool tropical looking low light plant. They are native to southern Africa, where it grows along the side of rivers, but still under the canopy of the forest. So it's basically the opposite of the last plant we talked about, the spineless yucca. While that one needs bright light and low water, the Natal Mahogany needs low light, but a lot of water. I've noticed that it really is similar to the peace lily in how it will really show you when it needs water. As soon as it dries out, the top leaves will start to hang down and they'll look really wilted. But once you water it, they'll perk right back up again. So in that way, it is very similar to the peace lily, and it makes it super easy because it will bounce right back if it gets too dry, but it will tell you when it needs to be watered. It's perfect for anyone who tends to overwater because it needs so much water that it's hard to overwater it. And it's also perfect for anyone who tends to underwater because it will let you know when it needs to be watered. Natal Mahogany also has some very beautiful scented flowers that normally bloom in the late summer or the fall. So that is another huge bonus because you won't find too many houseplants that are going to bloom inside and they're going to have fragrant flowers. The Natal Mahogany can grow up to 8 or 9 feet tall inside, and it will get fairly wide too. So it is one of the best large plants that you can easily grow in low light spots in your home. But if you want something that's not going to get quite that big, I'll show you another super easy but smaller houseplant right now. For the next plant in our list of the 20 easiest houseplants to take care of, I'm going with Kalanchoe. The Kalanchoe is super easy because it is both a succulent, meaning that it doesn't need much water, and it also can tolerate fairly low light, which most succulents won't. Most succulents need a lot of sunlight, so they can be kind of tricky to take care of inside because when they're not in enough light, they're very easy to overwater and they will rot very quickly. But this is not the case with Kalanchoes. Kalanchoes are very easy to water in bright light. In low light, you'll just water them less. And there are also a bunch of different types of really cool Kalanchoes. The most popular one that when I think of a Kalanchoe, or I think when most people think of a Kalanchoe, they think of the florist Kalanchoe, which is the one that gets covered in those small little flowers that shoot up from the stems, and it will just be covered in flowers, and those ones are very nice. And there's some really nice colors of those. The orange ones, the yellow ones, they are really nice. I like those ones a lot. But there are many more really cool ones. There's the flapjack Kalanchoe, the polar bear Kalanchoe, the mother of thousands, the mother of millions, the copper spoon Kalanchoe, the fang Kalanchoe, and many, many others. They all have really cool leaf shapes, interesting colors, and a bunch of them will flower inside as well. So if you want a really unique looking low water plant for your house, go with the Kalanchoe. The Kalanchoe is an awesome plant if you're looking for a smaller house plant, but next I will show you another very easy to care for vining house plant. So if you have even a very small knowledge of houseplants, I'm sure you're familiar with pothos. Pothos is one of the most widely used houseplants and also one of the absolute easiest houseplants. Pothos is a vining plant, so it's great if you want something that's going to hang down. You can also train it to grow up, either on a moss pole, or if you can somehow attach it to your wall, then that can look really cool. I used to do it where I'd put two thumbtacks on either side of the vine, and then as it grows, I would just keep putting two so that it's supported, but I'm not, damaging it at all. And it looked really cool. So you can kind of just guide it to grow up the wall wherever whatever direction you want. It doesn't matter if it's getting that much light. If it is getting light, that's good. If it's not getting light, that's good. So growing up a pothos up the wall, I think, is a really cool thing to do with those. But you can just have it hanging down, or you can just keep it in a normal pot on a table, and then just like kind of trim it back whenever it starts to grow too long. And it is also super easy to propagate. So as you cut it back, you can just stick the cuttings in a cup of water for a week or two until the roots start to grow, and then just put it in some soil, and you'll have a whole new pothos plant. Or you can just leave it in water. I've seen where people leave pothos in water for years, and it just eventually, like, the roots will kind of just coil up in the cup or the jar or whatever it's in, and as long as you fertilize it every once in a while, you can keep it in water for a long time. Pothos is so popular that I think most of you are already familiar with it, so I don't think I really need to say too much about it. So let's just move on to the next easy to take care of houseplants. Next up, I will show you another easy houseplant that gets a bit taller than the last couple we've discussed. Next up, we have the money tree, which according to the philosophy of feng shui is said to bring good luck and good fortune to anyone who has one in their home. So you're trying to get rich quick, like me, you're gonna want to get a money tree. No, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how effective it is at immediately bringing riches to someone, but hey, it couldn't hurt. The money tree is a really cool tree, whether it brings you, luck and fortune and wealth, or it doesn't. It's still a really cool tree. It comes from Central and South America, where naturally they can grow up to 50 or 60 feet tall. Inside in a pot, they're unlikely to get much taller than, 10 or 12 feet tall. But they do grow fairly quickly. So it is a good option if you want a tree inside your home that you can buy at a relatively small size for not much money, but that will grow tall quickly. Okay, so if you want a tall tree, get a small money tree and then, just let it grow for a year or two, and it's going to grow much, much taller, much more quickly than a lot of houseplants will. The money tree also almost always comes with a braided trunk for whatever reason. That's the popular way in which they're usually grown, but it really looks very cool. It gives it a unique look. So I like that they do it. Like, you're going to want to put your money tree at least near a window. It doesn't need a ton of direct light, but at least bright indirect would be good. Then just water it once every 2 weeks, and it'll be very easy to keep alive and very easy to grow to a large size. But if you don't want a fast growing tree in your house, if you don't have the space for that, next I will show you another awesome hanging plant that grows like a vine and also has some very beautiful flowers. All right, next we're talking about Hoyas, and I went and grabbed my Hoya here because look at that. It is currently blooming, and I just love these Hoya flowers. They grow in these little clusters, and they're so cool looking, and they really have a very nice scent as well. So had to grab mine to show you guys there. They are super beautiful, and there are so many types of Hoyas. Okay, so the Hoya is another very easy low water plant, and it's perfect for growing in a hanging basket in front of a window. While Hoyas can survive in relatively low light, they'll do much better in bright light, and they will be much more likely to flower in brighter light. Hoyas produce, as you've seen, these very stunningly beautiful clusters of flowers, and they're usually white or pink. They're very unique looking flowers. The way they grow in these very kind of symmetrical clusters, they look almost fake. They're sometimes called porcelain flowers due to these, they're just that perfect white kind of appearance they have. Some of them can take years to flower though. So you want to fertilize them with some flowering fertilizer once they're a foot or two long if they haven't flowered. They also don't need much water, so you'll want to water them infrequently, and making sure that they get totally dry in between waterings can also increase the chance of them flowering. So I found that once they get big and you think they might be able to flower, let them get very dry in between waterings. But when you do water them, you kind of got to rehydrate them. So what I'll do is I'll let it get very dry, but then I'll just take it outside and put a plastic saucer under it, and let it like water it so that the saucer completely fills to the top with water. And then I'll let it just sit in that water for a few hours so it can really soak up as much water as it needs. And if you do that, it will really increase the odds of the Hoya flowering. Okay? So there are many different types of Hoyas with different shapes and patterns on their leaves, but they all have, very elegant kind of waxy look. And even when they're not flowering, they are very beautiful. While most of these plants I've shown you so far are toxic to animals, the next one I'm going to show you is very easy to grow, very beautiful, and also totally non-toxic. So this next one is for the animal lovers. This next one is another one of my favorite easy to care for houseplants, And that is because I have a ton of cats. All right, so this plant is non-toxic and pet friendly, and I'm talking, of course, about the Ponytail Palm. On my last video or a couple videos ago, about the 20 best low light plants, I received a ton of comments asking which ones were non-toxic to pets. So I'm going to do a video of all my favorite pet-friendly houseplants in the next week or two. But I wanted to include one on my list now, and the Ponytail Palm is an awesome plant, guys. I really love these plants. They're not only non-toxic, but they are super easy to grow inside, and also a very unique looking plant. The plant looks, just as the name would suggest, like a ponytail. It has a long woody trunk, and then the leaves come out the top just like a ponytail. They shoot up out of the trunk and then arch up and hang down. It really looks like no other plant that I've ever seen. They also have a huge bulbous, kind of domed stump at the bottom, and this enlarged base, which is called a caudex, stores a lot of water. So the ponytail palm does not need to be watered very often. Once every 2 weeks would be fine, although I think it would be just fine to water it less than that. I water mine every 2 weeks about, but I've definitely gone longer than that a bunch of times, and it's just fine. They do need good light though, so make sure you put it right in a window, and ideally a window that gets some direct light. Although you will see ponytail palms usually, or at least like often, you'll see them just 2 or 3 feet tall. They can actually get very tall. I've seen them, probably 6 or 7 feet tall inside. And as long as you have a large window, I think they could even get larger than that. I've seen them outside get very tall down in Florida. But inside, if you had the space and had a big window, I bet you could get it to 10 feet. The leaves can also get very long, so you'll want to put it in a spot where it has a couple feet on each side for the leaves to really have space to grow out. All right, so ponytail palm. It is a great low water house plant that can grow pretty large. So next I'm going to show you another low water plant that will not get quite as big. Okay, so when it comes to low water houseplants, there's probably nothing that needs less water than a snake plant. If you're someone who tends to forget to water your plants, then the snake plant is perfect for you. As a general rule, I would say water a snake plant about once a month. But in low light, you could probably get away with watering them even once every 2 months. They can handle being completely dry for long periods of time, so just as long as you don't water it too often, they will basically stay alive forever with almost no care whatsoever. They don't need a ton of fertilizer or a ton of light, so you can pretty much just set them anywhere and just forget about them. There are also a lot of different interesting types of snake plants. Most people think of just kind of the normal, basic flat leaf snake plants, but there are actually some with round leaves. There's one called the Fernwood Mikado snake plant, which has these very thin, round leaves. And I have heard that that is actually the original form of the snake plant before it was bred to have the flat leaves. There's also the starfish snake plant, which is similar, but it has very thick round leaves. And those have a really cool look. I like those ones a lot. They're one of my favorite of the snake plants. There's also the shark fin and whale fin snake plants, which have these very wide, flat leaves that are much wider and larger than the normal varieties of snake plants. And they also have these beautiful dark green patterns on them that really stand out in any space. So if you have not seen the shark fin or whale fin snake plants, I would definitely recommend getting one of those. They are super cool. While the snake plant is basically as easy as you can get when it comes to houseplants, it is very common, and you see them in people's homes all the time. So next I'm going to show you another very easy houseplant that is much less common. Next up, we have the Raphidophora decursiva, or the dragon tail plant. I often see this plant referred to as the dragon tail philodendron, although it is not really a philodendron. It's Raphidophora, which is the same family as the mini Monstera that we talked about earlier, the Raphidophora Tetrasperma. Like the mini Monstera, the dragon tail grows like a vine, but for whatever reason, I found that the dragon tail, it doesn't seem to like hanging down as much as it likes to grow up. So this is the perfect plant to put onto a pole or a trellis so that it can grow upwards instead of down. I have found that with these Raphidophora dragon tail plants, as they start to grow upwards, the leaves start to get a lot bigger. And they also start to have a lot more fenestration, which are the holes or the rips in the leaves, like you see on this Monstera. So at first, the leaves will be totally, you know what? I've got one over here. Let me just grab it. So at first, the leaves will just be like that. No fenestration, no rips in them. And then as they start to grow bigger, they'll get like this, where they have two rips, one on each side. And then over time, they'll get where every single little line has fenestration on it. So if you can imagine, it's not just like this with one on each side, but it has like four rips on each side. So as they get more and more fenestrations, they start to look almost like palm leaves because they just have these thin little pieces of leaf and then all these rips in them. And it is it's just a really cool plant because as it grows, it totally changes how it looks over time as it gets bigger and bigger. While the dragon tail is often incorrectly considered to be a philodendron, if you do want an easy to grow philodendron in your house, next up I will show you what I think is the easiest of all the philodendrons. So there are dozens of different types of philodendrons, but in my experience, I found that the easiest of them all is the Rojo Congo. I also think the Rojo Congo is a very beautiful houseplant, and it's really going to bring a lush tropical vibe to any space that it's in. As the leaves grow, they'll first be bright red as they emerge from the stem, and then as they open, they turn to a maroon kind of color as they start to unfurl, and then as they mature, they start to turn to dark green. So if you've got a healthy, large Rojo Congo philodendron, you will see all these colors at once as different leaves are at different stages of growth. To make them really happy, the key is to increase the humidity. So you can do this by either misting them down just with a little spray bottle with water, misting them down a few times a week, or just putting them together in a large cluster of plants. So then as you water them, all that soil is going to be wet. They're all going to be evaporating water. So you can put them in a cluster of plants, and that will help a little bit. But the easiest way is just to get a humidifier and put it nearby. The Rojo Congo is an awesome, easy to care for tropical plant. So if you want to feel like you are living in a jungle, you've got to get one. While these last couple plants have been very beautiful tropical houseplants, next I'm going to show you another desert plant. Okay, next here we are talking about the pencil cactus. And if you know anything about me, you know I would never advocate for having a cactus inside your house. And if you are like me and you've worked with cacti a lot, then you know what I'm talking about. I don't even need to say anything else. You know. There are only so many cactus spines that you can get in your hands and in your fingers, and carrying a cactus gets them in your stomach. Like, there's only so many cactus spines that you can get in yourself, in your skin, before you get a little sick of them. Okay? But the pencil cactus, does not have spines. And it is actually more of a succulent than a cactus. These plants grow these long cylindrical shaped stems that look like pencils. Unsharpened pencils, by the way, unsharpened. So you have nothing to worry about. There's nothing sharp at all on the pencil cactus. And they have a super cool and unique look with the stems growing at all these weird angles, intersecting and crossing, and just giving it this very kind of interesting geometrical kind of look. So I really like them a lot. And since they are a desert plant, that means that they need low water and bright light. So put it in your brightest window and just water it every month or so. And it can also help to plant them in a cactus and succulent soil so that it dries out quicker. These can also grow quite big. I've seen them grow about 6 feet tall and, maybe 3 feet wide. While the normal one, the normal just green pencil cactus, is a uniform color, a uniform nice light green color, there's also a variety called the fire sticks pencil cactus, which turns bright red and even like pink at the top. So these ones are especially striking, but they can be a little hard to find, especially in a larger size. So if you do see one, I would definitely recommend buying it because you don't see them that often and they're super cool. Next up, I'm going to show you another really easy houseplant that is grown mostly for its beautiful flowers. So if you're looking to add some color to your house, this next one is for you. Next up, we have African violets, which have an array of different flowers, all of which are stunning and will brighten up any room. So while the most common ones have purple flowers, there are also African violets with pink flowers, red flowers, white flowers, and all sorts of combinations of these different colors. And they also will pretty much bloom consistently as long as they're in enough light. So it's definitely a plant that you're going to want to put in your windowsill, but as long as you do that, they are very easy. One thing to know with African violets is you do want to have them on some sort of saucer where you can water them from the bottom. The leaves on the African violets are super sensitive to water, so you want to keep the leaves totally dry and not get any drops of water on them at all. I found that the easiest way to do this is just have them on a saucer and fill the saucer with water when you need to water them. The plant will absorb all of that water up within a few hours, and that's the best way to do it. So these are really beautiful plants with such unique and cool looking flowers that I cannot recommend them enough. But since the African violet will stay pretty small, they only get, maybe like a foot tall and a foot wide. Next, I will show you another easy to grow tree. Ficus Altisima. The Ficus Altisima, or the yellow gem ficus, it's very similar to the Audrey Ficus in its look and its growing needs, but it has a very nice yellow and green variegation on its leaves. And it's about as easy as it gets when it comes to growing variegated plants indoors. The leaves have these splotches of dark green. I forgot, I have mine right here. All right, here we go. So I've got this kind of weird shaped one here. But you see, the leaves have these splotches of dark green along the center of the leaf, and then it's surrounded on the outside by this kind of lime green or yellow color. And it's a visually very striking color combination that will add some nice color to your home. All right, I'm going to put this down, but you can see these are a really unique, really special plant there. And you can see like some of the leaves are more green and some are more yellow, but they can even get like bright yellow on the outside. They can get much brighter than this. So they'll kind of change color over time as well, depending on how much light they're in. So I love the Ficus Altisima. And like any ficus, they can grow pretty tall and really branch out over time. So if you've got the room in your house and have some big windows, this can really grow into a large tree over time. and it will look absolutely beautiful. Like the Audrey Ficus, the yellow gem ficus can produce aerial roots as they grow larger, and these big, thick roots hanging down along with that yellow and green leaf color combination will make the plant really stand out in your home, even if you have a bunch of houseplants already. All right, so while we talked earlier about the mini Monstera and why I chose to leave the regular Monstera off of the list, there's actually another plant in the Monstera genus that is different from this one, which is Monstera deliciosa. And this next one that I'm going to show you is much easier to take care of than the classic Monstera. So I'll show you that plant next. For plant 16, I'm going with the Monstera Adinsoni, which is also sometimes called the Swiss cheese plant. So like the mini Monstera, this plant has a vining growth pattern and has leaves that are similar shape to the pothos. And it's every bit as easy to take care of as a pothos. While the mini Monstera has the fenestrations or the rips in the leaves that go all the way to the edge of the leaves, this one, they don't go all the way. It just has the circular holes in the middle of the leaves. Um, so if you see on this Monstera, the outer fenestrations are kind of what it looks like on the mini Monstera. On the Swiss cheese plant or the Adinsoni, it just has these types of fenestrations, just the holes in the middle of the leaf, where they're circles that don't go all the way to the edge of the leaf. So it's a bit different than the mini Monstera, and they are super cool, and that's why it's called the Swiss cheese plants. You know, it really does look like Swiss cheese with those little circular holes in the leaves. Sometimes the leaves will actually have more holes in them than leaf, with just these little thin strips of leaf going between the holes. So it's definitely a very weird and very cool looking plant, and they're super easy to grow. They're an awesome hanging plant to have hanging down from a shelf, and like most vining plants, they're very easy to propagate. So if you buy one, you'll have 2 or 3 different plants before you know it. And like any tropical plant, pretty much, they'll grow faster in high humidity. So mist them down occasionally or put a humidifier near them. While the Swiss cheese plant is a beautiful hanging plant, its uniqueness comes from the holes in the leaves, from the fenestrations. It doesn't necessarily have any different colors or patterns on the leaves. But next up, I'm going to show you another hanging plant that has a really spectacular, colorful pattern on its leaves. All right, now we are talking string of turtles, and I think that string of turtles is actually one of the most underrated houseplants. It's so easy to take care of, and it has such cool pattern on its leaves. The leaves have these splotches of dark purple with these kind of veins of light green running through them. And I really don't know why they're not more popular, because they are super cool looking and they're super easy, but I've never really seen one in anyone's home, even people I know who are into plants. But I think they're super cool and they are also super forgiving. Okay, so I used to have one in my shower, and I didn't realize that the water from the shower was actually getting into the pot every time that I took a shower. So for literally months, they were getting watered every day, and not only that, they were getting watered with really hot water, and it was totally fine. I realized eventually, but they were totally fine. After that, after I realized that it was getting water on it every single day, I hung it in front of a window in a pot that was like kind of hard to water. So then I barely watered it for a while, and it still survived. Okay, so they are very hard to kill, and believe me, I have tried, but it somehow stayed alive from being watered constantly with hot water to being barely ever watered. The plant is right over there, it's still alive. So whether you overwater or underwater your plants, string of turtles will be easy for you either way. They're very forgiving and very cool looking. So now that I've showed you a couple of hanging plants in a row, next up I'm going to show you another super easy tree that you can keep alive inside, even in very low light. The umbrella tree is another old classic when it comes to houseplants. And that's not just because it is really easy and really forgiving to grow inside, but it's also because you can put it pretty much anywhere and it's going to do just fine. Okay, so the umbrella tree is native to Australia and Papua New Guinea, where it grows under the dense forest canopy. So it doesn't get a ton of direct sunlight in its natural habitat, and that means that it can tolerate low light inside very well. I personally really like the umbrella tree because because of how the leaves grow in this very symmetrical pattern. They come off the branches in a very uniform circle that make it really stand out amongst other houseplants. I think that when plants have these kind of very symmetrical kind of look, it adds a cool geometrical feel, especially if it's in front of like a bright colored wall or a wooden wall. It really, I don't know why, but that's just a cool look and it really stands out. There are two types of umbrella trees, the dark green one and the yellow variegated one. They are both really nice and really easy, and they both will look good in pretty much any spot in your home. Next, I'm going to show you another really cool and super low water plant for all those underwaterers out there. All right, next we have got the Zyzy plant. And the Zyzy plant is the perfect plant for people who are always forgetting to water their plants or who are out of town a lot and need house plants that they can leave for long periods of time. Although I would generally say to water a Zyzy about once a month, they can definitely go without water for much longer periods of time. And that is due to the huge rhizomes that they develop under the soil. So it's similar to it's similar to the base of the ponytail palm that stores all that water. The rhizomes on the Zyzy plant develop underground, these big like kind of bulbs underground, and they can store enough water for the Zyzy to be just fine without water for a couple months. They can also handle very low light as long as you barely water them. So, like any house plants, you're going to want to water it more often if it's in a brighter spot and less often if it's in a darker spot. The Zyzy plant has these very dark green, shiny, glossy leaves. So, it's another one that someone who doesn't know much about plants would honestly probably think that it's fake. If you didn't know, you could definitely think it's fake because of how glossy and waxy the leaves are. While that perfect kind of glossy, shiny look on the leaves gives it a very cool look, you do want to keep them clean. You want to wipe them down with like a wet washcloth or a paper towel every once in a while because of that waxy kind of look. When they get dust on them over time, if dust settles on them, it'll be very noticeable, and it just kind of takes away from the overall look and appeal and just what makes the Zyzy plant look so special and so cool. There's also a really awesome purple Zyzy plant, which is called the Black Raven Zyzy. And I've heard some people say that the Black Raven Zyzy is harder to take care of than the normal one. But I have definitely not found that to be true at all. Okay, I think the care is exactly the same. They're just as easy. Really, the only difference between the two types is that the purple one is more expensive. That's really all that it is. So both are really awesome, easy plants that will do well in those darker spots in your home. All right, my people. So finally, we have made it to the final plant on the list, number 20, and I have really got a treat for you guys, okay? This one is so awesome. I love this plant. You guys are going to love it. It's one that the more experienced plant lovers will probably be familiar with, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be super popular houseplant overall. and I just don't know why. This plant is both super easy to grow inside and also has some of the most beautiful flowers of any plant in the world. So get ready, everyone. I'm about to show you a super special and super easy plant right now. All right. You know I've always got to save the best for last, and I was not joking around when it comes to this plant, the Plumeria. The Plumeria has got to be one of my favorite all-time plants, and it is really just an incredible and breathtaking plant to have in your home, especially in the summer when it's blooming. There are many types of Plumeria with many different colors of absolutely beautiful flowers. There are some with white flowers, pink flowers, red flowers, orange flowers, and then all sorts of different shades of these colors, as well as different combinations of these colors. Okay, so there are some that are yellow in the center with a white edge. There's some that are yellow in the center with a pink edge. Some that have like a mix of pink and orange, and just all sorts of incredible colors. These flowers are just, they are stunning. They're just beautiful. And they're also very fragrant, especially at night. Flowers that release their fragrances at night are pollinated by moths rather than by bees or butterflies because moths are what's out at night. I think these kind of flowers that are fragrant only at night are really cool. I have over here I have a really nice orchid that is the same thing. It's like a bright white flower, and it's only fragrant at night. And it's one of my favorite orchids. I have a bunch of orchids, and honestly, that might be my favorite of all. These flowers, they start putting out this beautiful fragrance right as the sun sets. And that is just so cool to have in your home. As the sun is setting outside, that intoxicating smell just kind of starts drifting through the house. And it really makes that sunset a very special time and a very special thing to experience every night throughout the whole summer and even into the fall as well. So, if you've heard someone talk about a flower having an intoxicating fragrance, they must have been talking about plumerias. Okay, between the colorful flowers and their fragrance, plumerias are just one of a kind and absolutely beautiful. The Hawaiian leis, which are those necklaces of flowers that they have in Hawaii, are made from plumeria flowers. So if you've ever been to a Hawaiian luau, you know what I'm talking about. Me, I've never been to a Hawaiian luau because I'm always at home taking care of my plants. I don't have time to go to Hawaii. I don't have time to go to a barbecue. I'm always at home, just caring for these plants. They don't look this good by themselves. Nah, I'm just joking, guys. I would love to go to a Hawaiian pig cookout. I would love to go to Hawaii, and I will someday. But anyways, I'm getting off topic here, guys. Plumerias are just incredible, and I could not recommend them enough. They do need a lot of sunlight, though. So you're going to want to put them in the brightest spot in your house, ideally a south-facing window. If you don't have a really bright window, though, don't worry, there is still a way to grow them. Plumerias lose their leaves and go dormant in the winter. So once the leaves all fall off, you can literally just pick up the pot and put it in the garage for the winter. And it'll do just fine with no light at all. Just water it, once or twice throughout the winter to prevent it from dry rotting. And you can even actually just pull it out of the soil and wrap it up bare root and just throw it like on the ground on the side of your garage and just leave it there all winter with no soil, no water. And then you just pull it outside in the summer and it'll sprout new leaves and start blooming as soon as it gets warm out. So if you don't have a bright window, just put it inside for the winter and put it outside on the patio for the summer. But when you have it inside in a bright window, you'll want to plant it in some nice loose soil. So use a cactus and succulent mix, or maybe a mix of half happy frog soil and half perlite. Plumerias do need a lot of nutrients, so you could actually use that happy frog soil or the other type, the Fox Farm Ocean Forest soil, to give it some extra nutrients. But no matter what soil you use, it's definitely good to fertilize it so that in the spring you can help it along with pushing out new growth. So what I would do is use a high nitrogen fertilizer for a watering or two when you see it first putting out new growth in the spring, and then switch over to a high phosphorus flowering fertilizer once the leaves are looking good, and that will help it to bloom as much as possible. You don't absolutely need to fertilize it. If you have it in good soil, it will still probably bloom without any fertilizer, but if you want it to be as healthy as possible and to bloom as much as possible, I would definitely recommend fertilizing it. I think there's no harm, and I would recommend fertilizing all your houseplants, honestly, just getting that habit of doing that anyways. So I would highly recommend getting a Plumeria, putting it in a bright spot in your home, and you are in for a really beautiful experience, seeing and smelling it while it blooms all summer long and even into the fall. If you don't have a lot of options for places to buy plants where you live, plumerias should also be totally fine being shipped bare root. Because like I was saying, you can put them in the garage bare root. You can ship them bare root, and they'll be just fine. So there's no reason to be nervous about ordering one online if you don't have a lot of options for where to buy one wherever you live. So what are you waiting for, my people? Go get yourself a Plumeria right now. All right, they are absolutely incredible. I've got a couple of them myself. I've actually tried planting one in the ground over there. I will go. You know what? I'll just go show you guys right now. I got the microphone now. I'm gonna show you guys the Plumeria. I've got it in the ground over here. I figured, you know what? It's probably gonna grow quicker in the ground. So I just put it right there in the ground, and it has really taken off. So I'm hoping that it's gonna flower soon, and I'm gonna just dig it up and bring it inside in the winter. So I love plumerias. I'm trying something new with planting one in the ground, and yeah, that's about it, my people. So I love you guys very much. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm coming back soon with the best houseplants to grow that are non-toxic and pet friendly for all you pet people out there. And look at that, guys, all my house plants over there that I put outside. It's really gotten a bit out of hand here. And there's my Fox Farm poster. Shout out to Fox Farm. But anyways, guys, I'm getting off topic here. I'm gonna wrap this up. Those are my 20 best houseplants to grow inside, easiest houseplants to grow inside, and I'm gonna be back very soon with a bunch more videos. So love you guys very much. I will see you soon.